Is there a printer that really can beat the Ender 3 V2? Well, we're going to find out today on this episode of The First Layer. Hey, welcome back to The First Layer. My name's Richard. I'm your host here every Wednesday and live stream Saturday night. This is the show that explores the world of 3D printing. And today is no different because on the table today, we have a very special printer from a company called Mingda. Now, this company's been around for a while. They're not very well known, however, but they do have some really good products. And we're going to dive into the D2 today, which is right in the same line and in that same price point as the Ender 3 and the Lotmaxx SC-10 and a few others that are also in that sort of price range. The good news about this printer is it is available on Amazon, both in Canada and in the US. I have verified that. You can buy it overseas directly from Mingda, or you can get it on GearBest or some of the other large sites. So let's dive in because we got a lot to cover. This thing is feature rich. There are some downsides to it, but I'll get into those. But let's talk about some of the things that make this printer a great printer. Okay, so here we have the Mingda D2, and we'll take a look at the front here really quickly. We have the logo, and then of course we have a full-size SD card and a full-size USB cabling, and there is the D2 designation. Over here we have the LCD display, and it's very intuitive. It's a 3.5-inch LCD touchscreen OLED, so you can see it pretty much from any angle. Of course, I still haven't taken the plastic off it yet, but we'll get there. As we move around, we can see that it's got nice size leveling knobs on the bottom. They're easy to get your hand in there. It has, as we pull back, you can see here that we have a full-size 230 by 230 by 260 build volume, and this is their magnetic flex system, very similar to the one that you're going to find on the Creality Ender 3. Here is the pièce de résistance, is right there. There is their extruder setup and hot end. This is a direct drive extruder. You can see there's also an LED light back there that is on while the machine is on. Has good ducting. I haven't found any issues with the ducting whatsoever. As we move up the line here a little bit, we also see that it has a filament out detection switch. You can see that it's blue now, indicating that we have no breaks in our filament and that we have good filaments running all the way through it. If it turns red, then you know that you've got a problem. So what else is really cool? What I found really cool about these is the end switches. You can see here that we've got a push button. So they're not the little typical end switches that you'll find on most 3D printers. These are a little bit more robust, and they're a little easier to replace too. You can find most of these at electronic stores or even online. Nice heavy duty cabling right there. I want to take you around the back and to the bottom of the machine and show you a couple of other things. So on the back of the machine, we can see that we have our typical on-off switch with a fuse, and it uses a typical type of computer plug. There is the build volume, the model number, the wattage. It is a 5-watt 110 to 240 volt power supply. It is made in China. Again, we've got another one of those micro switches right here for your end stop, which I really like. They're a lot more responsive, I find, than the typical end stops that we get. Now, the other thing about this is that it has dual Zs, which for a printer of this size is usually unheard of. A nice all-metal chassis. I really like that about it. You can see here that we've got two 20 by 20 rails that our bed rides on. Not a single rail down the center, 40 by 40 or 120 by 20. This is two 20 by 20s, and it really is a good setup for this type of system. Now, this plug is not I'm not a big fan of this plug. Now, I always find that on other machines, they can fray right here. Now, this one is set up so if you look here, we can see that it kind of locks in. You see how it's got the plastic here on either side? It kind of locks in, which is kind of nice. Doesn't allow this to flex at all, which will allow it to hold up a little bit longer. Okay, there we go. Now this is all a 24 volt power system, so you are going to be using 24 volts across the board. It's not 12 volts. The other thing that I found to be a bit of a problem was accessing the spot to where you're going to change what type of power you're using. So if you're in North America, we go back here, if you're in North America, you're going to use 110. If you're in some European countries, you're going to use 240. So where that is on the bottom, and I'm going to show you that right now. So right down here on the bottom is a hole in the bottom of the chassis that allows you to access the power supply. So you can change the power supply to 110 or 240 depending on where you are in the world. It is a little tough to get in there, but there is a generous size access hole there, so I would use it. Definitely I would use it. Alright, so you can see I have a variety of prints in front of me. Some of these are from their test files, and a few of them I cut myself from the STLs that are on the SD card. On the SD card, you're going to find everything that you need, including a copy of Cura that is tailored to this machine, although I would recommend that you download the latest version of Cura. As of the recording of this video, it was 4.7.1, and you can use the Ender 3 profile. Just change the bed size and you'll be all set. Now, I printed all of these in Hero 3D gray filament with the exception of this guy right here, and I got to tell you, that filament works great. This is all PLA right here. So let's take a look at some of these models a little bit closer. All right, so these pieces that you're seeing in front of me right now or on the screen are pieces that are part of their test file, just to show you how this printer actually prints. And we can see if we look at this triangle that the print quality is really, really nice. Like, that's very acceptable to me. I would be happy with that print quality. And then you've got this large tower, just to kind of show you how well it prints. And this also prints with rafts. So, and they're very easy to take off. How's that for cool? So all of these turned out really well. Even the surfaces, the top surface of these turned out really well as well. So there's the bottom of the raft, so you can kind of see that. And it just prints these random shapes in the four corners of the printer and then prints this large tower in the center. So let's move these off to the side. Let's bring over another one of the prints that they have on the SD card. This is the Pirate, which I sliced and then printed out. And I think it printed out really well. There are a few under extrusion errors. I think that has more to do with the way that I sliced it, more so than anything else. I did not use any support material on this model, and I probably should have in some places. But I'm very happy with the result of that model. Now, one of the test files that they had on there was this vase. It did a beautiful job until it got to this top area right here that you can see on your screen. And I think that had a lot to do with the speed that it was printing at. But other than that, the vase is solid, and I would be happy with putting water in there. I don't think it would leak. Another one of their files is the crystal. There's a lot of detail on here. If you're a D&D person, you'll know kind of what this is. What I really liked is how it handled these top surfaces as it was going around. It did a really, really nice job. Again, this was printed without support. And another one of the files that you'll find on there is this pumpkin. Kind of cute for Halloween, which is coming up soon. It printed out really well. No real errors to complain about. Again, this was using just standard 1 or 0.16 millimeter layer height, which is usually what I use for most of my tests. And it did a fairly decent job. There's a little bit here and a little bit right there, I think because of the angle being too steep, but other than that, I'm not complaining. Now, the pièce de résistance is this Baby Yoda, which I doubled the size of because my wife's in love with Baby Yoda. This model you can find on Thingiverse. I'll link it in the description down below. And what you seek is seeking you, is what it says on the base. And this came out beautifully. Now, I printed this one with tree supports. Now, the only problem that I had was right here on these fingers. The tree supports grabbed the fingers, but I've kept them, so I'll glue them on later. And this will be a nice statue to go in the background here on the set. So there it is. The proof's in the pudding. Very well tailored machine to whatever you're going to print. I think if you're an entry-level 3D printing enthusiast or hobbyist, this might be a good one to look at. You know that I've suggested the Ender 3 in the past. I've suggested the Lotmaxx SC-10. I am definitely going to suggest the Mingda D2. Also, this is really going to make one of my top fives, I believe, for 2020, just because it is so feature-packed. Now, what's the price? And that's probably what everybody's wondering. Well, on Amazon in Canada, this sells for $299, and I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can find it. It is a little bit more overseas when you're looking at companies like Banggood and GearBest and AliExpress. You can find this on all three of those websites. You can also find this on Mingda's website. But if you are going to buy it in North America, I would check Amazon, and the Amazon Canadian price is $299. So that is even less than what you're going to get an Ender 3 for in Canada. Other than that, what am I going to give this machine? I'm going to definitely give this 5 out of 5 hot ends because it definitely meets all of the criteria. Now, the cons about this, real quick, because I've covered most of the features and the benefits of those features, I'm not a big fan of these flexible beds. I would sooner put on a bed that has a little bit more rigidity to it, or even a piece of glass. I don't mind the texture that this leaves underneath your print. The prints seem to stick to this very well. Again, my biggest problem is, just like with the Ender 3, that lining this up can be a bit of a pain in the bucket. So it is a downside. Now, the one thing that they could have done, which they do show in their marketing material can be done, is adding a BL Touch or some kind of auto bed leveling system. I think that would have been a nice little add-on. Maybe you can get it, maybe you can't. I have not been able to find it on their website yet. And I will link to their website so you can see all the other models that they have available as well. So there it is, the Mingda D2. Do I recommend it? Will it go on my shelf and be used quite often? Absolutely and absolutely. So there's no question about that at all. I do need to get into bigger printers because I've got so many of this size. But I do need to get into some bigger 12 by 12 printers, and we've got one coming up for you. Actually, we have two coming up for you very soon that we're going to take a look at. Up on our next video, we are going to be taking a look at a filament dryer that I think is worth your money and worth your time. So until I see you guys next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print.